Nebraska Republican Senator Ben Sasse, a member of the Senate Judiciary and Armed Services Committee, joins us from Capitol Hill. Senator Sasse, good morning.
Good morning, John. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. You said that the president's comments were bizarre and flat out wrong. What would you prefer to have heard from the president?
We should tell the American people and tell the world that we know that Vladimir Putin is a thug. He's a former KGB agent who is a murderer. He's been involved in shooting down an airliner that killed almost 300 civilians. He's invaded Georgia and Ukraine. He's committed cyber attacks on Estonia. He's now trying to destabilize Germany and France. He committed an attack against the United States and the American people in 2016. And we say in no unequivocal terms that we will expose that kind of attack against America, and we expect to respond to it with cyber. And right now, the president isn't leading. We negotiated from a position of weakness yesterday, and Vladimir Putin walked away from Helsinki with a win. It's a disaster.
Senator, the White House, Wei Zhang just reported, is trying to clean this up, maybe to get the president to say something to improve on his remarks yesterday. What do you think the effectiveness of that will be, and do you draw any larger conclusions about the president's habits of mind, either with respect to Russia or the globe, from his performance at the press conference yesterday?
Too often what we seem to see is a Trump first policy rather than an America first policy. An America first policy that was fully thought out would be explaining to the American people that the last 75 years have seen the greatest period of peace and prosperity and economic growth around the world in history. NATO isn't just one alliance. NATO is the most important military alliance in generations. Arguably, NATO is the most important military alliance in 2 millennia. So if the president wanted to come out and explain that, that would be wonderful news. But right now, what happened in Helsinki just leaves everybody scratching their heads. And when you have the choice, John, to side with Vladimir Putin or to side with the patriots of the American intelligence community, and regardless of what they might in private be as Republicans or Democrats, there is no debate inside the U.S. intelligence community that Russia tried to disrupt and hack the American election in 2016. But in a way, more fundamentally, what they're doing today and planning to do in the future is continue to sow the seeds of distrust and undermine American public confidence. When you see that and you have a choice between siding with Vladimir Putin or siding with patriots in the U.S. intelligence community, there's no choice here. The answer is obvious, and yet we didn't see that yesterday.
Well, Senator Sasse, you put out a list before the meeting saying he's a thug and a murderer and all the things that you just outlined. But while President Trump was standing next to him, he said getting along with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing. Does he have a point on that?
It's certainly better to get along with your enemies and your competitors on the global stage than to get into a hot war with them, as long as you have some sort of clarity about what you're trying to get along about. So here's what America wants to get along about. We believe that 7.5 billion people across the globe are created with dignity, that they have the rights to free speech and assembly and press and religion and protest, not because a government gives them those rights, but because they're created with dignity. Governments just try to secure rights that people have by nature. And so if we wanted to articulate what we believe on the global stage, it turns out that scares the crap out of Vladimir Putin.
So what are you going to do about it, Senator? What are you going to do about it now? Okay, we've had the meeting. Everyone's talking on both sides. What are you going to do?
So first of all, we need to have a shared understanding across 320 million Americans about who we are and who Putin is. So the actual talking about it that you're doing right now is really important. We shouldn't just let yesterday be swept under the rug. We have to explain American values, and we have to understand why they're in conflict with Putin's. What we should also do is we should be ramping up sanctions on Putin and his thugs, because he's surrounded by a whole bunch of thugs that hold the Russian people down. America actually wants to make lots of common cause with the Russian people. There are many champions of liberty in Russia. It's just that Vladimir Putin is against his people. We're much more aligned with the people of Russia than Putin is. So more sanctions would be good. Number two, we need to reaffirm NATO, and we need more military spending in NATO. One of the things the president said that was right is Germany's flirtation with cheap energy sources from Russia is unhelpful to the NATO alliance. And so we should call that out as well. But in it, go ahead, Gayle, sorry.
And well, it's Bianna. Hi, Senator. We have to wrap it and end it here, unfortunately. But we should also note that today marks the 4-year anniversary that airliner was shot down by the Russians. The president didn't bring that up at all yesterday in his meeting.
And so we should be exposing much more of that. What Putin does to maintain a stranglehold on his power, our intel agencies know lots of it. We should expose it.
And we'll have you back on to talk more about this.
Thanks.
Senator, thank you so much.